Okay guys, so here we have it before you. You'll see the entire wiring harness that I used to run in the Mustang before I went through and completely remade my own harness. You can see this is when we still used the factory ECU. What we basically did was I had a fellow that with the use of this handy book here, which I'd recommend anybody getting. We went through and basically did a wire diet. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that, of going through all of the master plugs here and pairing out what we need, what we don't need. Obviously, we didn't need a radio, we didn't need a dome light, things of that nature. All that dead wire, that's all dead weight, and we wanted to get rid of all that. So all of that went out the window. The factory harness here that jumps in right here, that of course plugs into this main harness here, which then of course goes to the ECU here, and with a SCT chip inside, so you can still do all of your cool tuning, your whoever does that for you. Switch panels here, or not switch panels, but fuse panels. You can see we use some relays and some fusing, blade fusing, and some pretty heavy grade wire here for the power wires into the alternators, to the starters, things of that nature, stuff that you want to make sure doesn't burn down, doesn't give you any grief. We use weather packs throughout the any place you put a connection. If it wasn't a inserted screw type, it was a weather pack connector, so that you don't have any sort of weather issues down the road. Everything plugs in. You can see we have weather packs for everything, whether it be single wire or multiple wire here and then we do sometimes, of course, when we're having to plug into, say, the stock tail lights, you've got to use the stock plugs there. But all of that stuff we used as much as we could. Over here, you can see this particular bit of wiring here. All of my switches were in this car. I run all my switches up on the roll bar above my head, and so that's what all these screwed into the back of. We used all of our mil spec toggle switches, which are really expensive, but they're well worth it because they have this little gray switch with an orange silicone around the button, around the toggle itself. I'm sure most of you have seen those before. These all screw into the back of them with little baby screws, and all of the wire that you see here, any of the new wire that we use that high grade silicone jacketed wire, not the stuff you find at the AutoZone or whatever. The low grade generic wire is all the real good lightweight wire. Anyway, all these plug in, and that ran down the A post. Ran down the A post all the way down up to the switches. So that's kind of how that worked out. We got a fairly new throttle position sensor here, so for any of that. We also ran, of course, very good friends with the guys at Aeromotive, which make amazing products. We use all their fuel pumps and their filters, and one of the things that we use is this variable speed. We'll call it a fuel pump speed regulator. It senses RPM, and it changes the speed in which your fuel pump is running based on the speed of the motor. So there's no sense in the fuel pumps running flat out when you're just idling around the pits. So it's a nice, good way of keeping extra pressure and heat out of your fuel and out of your fuel pump system. So that's why we use that. Most of you guys have seen my car long enough. You know we used to run a lot of fans at the back of the car, and oil coolers and things of that nature, intercoolers, fans there. So that's what this panel is for. Again, blade fuses. Then we went ahead and go to relays, and all of the wires again go to weather pack connectors. So again, using as high grade stuff as we had available. And then again, as you see, the factory harness there with for the coils and the injectors have all the connections still there. So that's pretty much it. This is one thing that I would recommend anybody have get for themselves, this book here. I'm going to keep this because you just never know when you might need it. But that being said, I would recommend anybody who's got a car that uses a factory harness, get this book. It's a great wiring diagram book. There's the part number right there. You can see that, so you can order one for yourself. I don't know if I got it from. You can see the company here. was at Helms Incorporated is where it came from. Anyway, if you've got all of the diagrams that for a streetcar, all of the factory plugs, it's all there. There's all your pinouts, shows you everything there is to know about these things. So again, I'm not much of a wiring guy, but it works out very, very well for somebody who is, and it really came in handy to the guys who helped me with this wire, because this is, quite frankly, when we did the pairing out and getting all the wires, I pulled in the professionals, guys that really knew what they were doing, so that they could figure it all out. And we took, I don't know, somewhere around 30 pounds out of the wiring system, but this is what was left over. This is what ran the car. This is what got to all the gauges, all the switches, all of the fans, and naturally the ECU and all the lights as well. So that's the whole kit and caboodle. Again, everything's going to go save for the wiring book, but everything else will be available, and that's one big package. So there you go. Thanks, guys. So long.